Good morning. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Thanks so much for joining us this morning here on the East Coast and wherever you are coming in from. This is Jeff. Let's see, give me it right here. This is Jeff. This is Rick.
Right is left, right is left.
And I'm Caleb. Good to see you guys. Today, we are talking all about atmosphere for your magic. What it's like to have no atmosphere, and why that's important, and how we can craft or create a good atmosphere to lay the magic over, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I love that background you picked out, Caleb, for atmosphere. That's good stuff.
I was trying to show the difference between no atmosphere and atmosphere, right?
So you're in the atmosphere and I'm out of it.
A little bit, yeah. I'm trying to learn over here as well. So we had a couple questions and a couple little ideas here. If you guys have any questions, as always, feel free to put those down there in the chat. Let's say hi and see who we got here. We got Christopher Rice. Good to see you there, sir. Our winner, that was our winner from the last week's giveaway with Rooster with Keto Fly. And then we got Mike in here. What's going on, Mike?
What's up, Mike?
Good to see you, man. And I think that's literally the only two people we have in here right now, but that's okay.
It's a tough week to be live, huh? My kids started first grade today, so.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get started, though. The first thing we were going to talk about was why even care about the atmosphere. Why is that even important? What do you guys think?
What I think about the atmosphere? Well, I'll kick it off, Rick, then I'll spin it over to you. One of my main things is perception of value, like perception of value. So if you're saying, as I'm a performer going out and I'm worth X amount of dollars on my hourly fee, or my stage show is worth X amount of zeros after that initial figure, then you want to have a good perception of value. So you want to be in control of the atmosphere. Now, the reality is you don't always get to choose the venue. We'll get to talk about that in a minute. I think that's in some of our notes for today. But you want to be perceived as a valuable person. So depending on what your atmosphere is, you need to have some control to say that, hey, I'm a professional. I can own this. I can create this environment where magic can take place. And that can include all kinds of things from lighting to sound. Today, I don't have the best sound. I'm remodeling my studio, and so I got a clean backdrop today. But you might hear a little echo in my voice. And so for a paid show, if this was a Zoom show and you guys were paying to watch it, I would want to spend a lot more time making sure the sound was absorbed. And that's all part of the atmosphere. Those kinds of things, sound, lighting, all your senses, the touch, taste, smell. Some of those things you can control, some things you can't. But as much as you can control, you want to provide more value and show that you're worthwhile as a performer. Even if it's not a paid gig, you want people to think, hey, this guy's worth watching, that I should give him some of my time and energy.
And that's what I wanted to jump in right here and say real quick, is when you were talking about perception of value, that's great. And how that applies to those of us that are not at a paid gig, it seems like that idea that you may be the only magician someone ever has seen or ever will see, how important that is.
It's important to the whole community. It's important to the art that you show that magic is a valuable art form, because you are uplifting all of us. If you're carrying that title, even in the slightest bit, you're part of the community, and you may be the only magician that they see. Think about that. That's really deep.
It's a big deal, big responsibility. What do you think, Rick? What's going on over there in Ricktown?
Well, Jeff spoke to the atmosphere of a larger performance, maybe, or maybe even a stage show. But I think the same things apply to even casual performances, which probably most of our audience is, a hobbyist or casual performer. So we can do things that I'll exchange the word atmosphere for setting the stage for magic, because no one wants to be that annoying magician that's you want people to invite magic upon them. You don't want to pester people with hey, can I show you some magic? Can I show you this quick trick? You're already setting the stage for, maybe that person had a bad experience in the past with magic, and then the way you come on like that, you're setting the stage or creating a bad atmosphere before you've even performed anything. So just subtle things like that in a casual performance, I think, can really change the atmosphere and elevate whatever you're about to do. It can elevate it just another level or two. So you got to think about your approach, and that all changes with your surroundings. Like, are you at a big noisy party, or is it a nice dinner around a table out at a restaurant? Like, is it the appropriate time to show something? All these things can affect that casual atmosphere, so the magic is received in the best way possible.
I love that. That's a really good way for us to think about what's the goal. I want them to receive my magic the best way possible. That's a really good way of putting that, Rick. And I think that another thing that we had said here we might want to talk about is what sometimes the atmosphere is chosen for you, and you have to kind of adapt. What are maybe some examples that I know, Jeff, you had some thoughts on different situations you've been put into before?
Yeah, man, I've got, story after story. Because for those of you that don't know, before I had small kids, I traveled coast to coast, up and down North and South America, performing gigs. And, you don't always get the opportunity to choose what the surrounding is going to be, where you're going to perform. And I tell you, so a lot of the stuff I did was for nonprofits. I worked for a lot of nonprofits and small churches and venues like this. And, you can't always choose what the lighting is going to be, what the curtains are going to be, whether there's carpet, how good the sound system is, all this kind of stuff. And you can put all that stuff in your rider, in your contract agreement. You can put every last detail. You can outline it to the point that they won't even read it. And it still doesn't mean it's going to happen when you show up, right? You could say, I need the sound guy there 2 hours early. I need to do a sound check. Because when I'm rolling in, I'm doing a parlor show. I don't have big box illusions. So I can get by with a sound check 2 hours early. As I got further along, I would say 4 hours earlier, because I put in a buffer before I performed. I started to say I want a couple hours downtime before I perform, after I set everything up. But you can put all that stuff in there. It doesn't mean that they're going to bring that guy in, or it doesn't mean that the person's not going to be calling them last minute and say, yeah, I'm fulfilling this contract. You could put in fines and fees, but are you going to enforce those if they don't have those people? So if you're by yourself, that's hard stuff to do. Now, you can do your best and call and stay on top of it. An agent really helps with that kind of stuff. If you get to that level, I've worked with some agents, and they handle that stuff for you, and they're on the phone. And, sometimes I had the agent travel with me, and that was nice. So he's there, and I don't have to say anything. I don't have to be the bad guy. But those kind of environments work. And the environment can be more than just the surroundings. Sometimes it's the people. One example that I had happen to me multiple times is performing in churches. God bless them. I love it. It's part of my background, my faith, and I'm very happy to be in that environment. But many times the pastor would come up to introduce me, and he was part of the environment because he's the person I've given my cue card, my script, how to introduce me, and he jumps script and he doesn't follow it. All of a sudden he starts talking about his experience with magic, or he starts talking about this, that, and the other, saying, you guys, magic's not really real, and he ices the crowd. And then, so I come up and I have to say, yeah, you're right. Magic's not real. I never said it was. I'm an illusionist. I perform sleight of hand. And so the crowd is like, instead of energized, they're deflated. And you got to fight against it. That's part of your environment that you inherit. Now, what are you going to do in that situation? So It happened a time or two. So you got to be able to get quick into the magic and win them on your side. Another example, I used to work, I lived in central Missouri. One year we had the cicada hatch. If you know, during the pandemic, there was a big cicada hatch here in the US.
Sounds like a movie title.
Yeah, man.
The cicada hatch.
Yeah. It's insane, man. The trailer was the background here for that movie, that the Earth's rising and then the bugs were invading. That's what was going. No, it was legitimate, real deal, pandemic, not pandemic, what's the word? Plague of these bugs. And I was hired to do a gig at a park. And I had to do strolling magic. And I kid you not, the bugs were so loud. I was screaming at the top of my lungs and the people couldn't hear me. I mean, we are inches away from each other and I had to go silent with my magic. Had to be prepared. That was part of the environment I inherited. There's no way you could write that into the contract and say, I will not perform if there's screaming bugs in the background. But that was part of the environment. And luckily everybody was experiencing the same thing. So we rolled with it, but it affected how the magic was perceived. I couldn't tell story. It had to be all visual. And so there's a big difference between these environments versus when you show up into a legitimate theater where they have a paid sound guy. They have lighting that you don't have to think about. The sound system is built into the walls. There's a big difference when you show up into an environment that you charge money for the tickets. And when people buy a ticket, they've invested in the show, right? It's just like, when do you care about a stock in the stock market? If you guys trade or invest in it, you care about the stock the most the second after you click buy, right? Because then you want it to go up. You've invested. So now you cheer on that stock more than ever. You want to see it go up because it's your financial investment in. Well, if you pay a ticket price, I heard this first from George Carlin, the famous comedian, and it made complete sense. He said, when somebody buys a ticket, they dress better, they get more excited, they are invested in the show, and so they are ready to be entertained. So, that was for years. I did all these free shows, and eventually towards the end of my main performing career, even if it was an event that was basically free, I would try to do things for donations, bring something. I'd try to encourage people to do a dinner, make something where they're bringing potluck, if it's at a church or something, or investing in a $5 ticket, anything to make the people more excited and be invested into the show they're coming to. Now, in this day and age, $5 ticket doesn't mean very much. You might want to be at a $10 or $20 ticket on a minimum. But those sorts of things get people excited about the show. And when they've already invested, you've weeded out the hecklers. You've weeded out the people that aren't going to pay attention, that just want to be on their cell phone. And you've got the real customers, the real audience that you want at your show. And it creates a much stronger environment.
Well, I think Mike asked the question that we're all thinking. Did you produce bugs in your magic?
we
that might have... You were trying to make him disappear, I feel like. That was probably...
Yeah, pretty much trying to disappear. No, we did all sorts of stuff. I mean, I did some... I don't remember. I posted some stuff on social media, but I don't know if it was true out magic tricks. But I do remember the local ice cream shop made cicada ice cream. That was pretty fun.
Oh, my gosh. But it's funny because what you say, like, I've had a very similar experience. I had a whole like little introduction written out, and I gave it to the guy ahead of time. I was driving like 3 hours away to go do this show for these executives in this little like hotel room suite kind of thing. And it was this whole thing with my my little credentials that I had and everything. And he goes, well, today we have Caleb from so-and-so. Caleb, the floor is all yours. And I was like, what happened to the warming the crowd up and getting everybody? I know. You had to just kind of roll with things sometimes. So that's an important point. What about you, Rick? What do you any crazy situations?
Not really. I haven't performed it as in many different places as you guys, but another situation where the atmosphere is chosen for you is something I've done, is a little bit of restaurant work. And I mean, that can change from table to table or from night to night, and just like Jeff with the noise of the bugs, depending on what's going on that night or even where you are in that restaurant, you kind of have to switch gears and sometimes go silent. But that's the good thing about coin magic, is a lot of coin magic can be just done with your expressions and silently. And the effects are still understood and you can get by. And I mean, you're also dealing with the wait staff, when the drinks come out, when the food comes out. If that table is just ice cold for you, you got to wrap it up and move on. It's almost like each table is its own atmosphere sometimes.
That's a good point.
That is a good point, yeah. Because people are in
you got to be able
spots.
to just pit it, just, all right, enjoy your meal.
Yeah. One of my favorite things in that situation was to offer the table an invitation to invite me back if their mood changed or whatnot. Because sometimes people are just so hungry, they can't even focus or think about magic. But I say, hey guys, I'll be here all night if anything changes. And you know, about half the time they see the other table laughing, they call you back, you know, 20 minutes later.
Yeah, those are all things to consider with the restaurant.
There is room to within that environment, you could kind of choose your more optimal atmosphere. So like avoid a table with toddlers, babies, and instead go for the young couple. And you know, something you know might go badly. You might test it out later on, but you know, there's some room to help yourself out there.
There's all sorts of stuff you can do. I used to do this thing with when I'd approach a table and just kind of just try to learn to trust myself, my gut, what I felt for the table. So I always had an out where I would not introduce myself as the magician. I would introduce and say, you know, hi, thanks for being here, this kind of thing, and feel them out. And if it just wasn't feeling right, then I would just say, well, just if you need anything, just let us know, and just walk away. You know, and I just
put those things back in the
well, I wouldn't pull them out. I'm not the, you know, did you lose a white knife kind of, that's not my style anyways. I would just be, you know, engaging, and they think I'm maybe the manager, maybe who is this guy? Oh, he's just a nice guy. Because a lot of times not a lot, but have you ever been in that situation where you walk into the table and they go, yeah, we need mustard, you know, or you know, I need a fork, and I'm just like, we'll get that right for you. Let me go grab a server. You know what I mean?
This is a whole podcast. This is a whole live stream right here. Yeah, we didn't write that one down.
But Chris did make a good point here. What do you do to go from that crowd when the crowd is cold to go from cold to warm? Any quick tips that you guys have we could throw for them?
Yeah, somebody mentioned, was it Mike? Mike mentioned the fire wallet. Yeah, I think anytime you can do an impossible production, like producing fire from your wallet is an impossible production, or seemingly ironic or you know, bizarre production. So that's what I like to do when I come out on my show at the very beginning, is make sure I've got magic happening really fast. It's something big, something beautiful. And again, I'm doing parlor size, so I'm not producing trains or elephants. But you know, a big bottle production or something that's big and colorful, scarves that can be waved that look big, and then the bottle production from that. Those sorts of things. Like, I think that when you can establish yourself very quick, you can get them to go from cold to warm. One of my techniques, and I know this isn't for everybody, and I've shared this quite a bit, is I like to start off with skill. And so I love flourishing. Like in the restaurant environment or the walk around environment, I don't know many flourishes with decks of cards. It's not really my thing. But if I've got a deck of cards in my hands, I will flourish it up to the table with some fancy cuts, some tri-cuts, and maybe a 5-packet display. Because I think that lets the audience know that I am skillful and I'm worth their time. And I think in 2021, in this new millennium, people want that. The old timers used to say, don't flourish, you show them that you're skillful and you're crafty with nimble with your little fingers. And I would say that leads people to think that you're deceptive.
Who is that? Who is that? That sounded like Divernon.
Who is that? That might have been Vernon and Howie Schwartzman mixed together. I don't know.
Okay.
It might have been a Vernon Marlowe Schwartzman combo. I'm not really sure. But you know, I heard some of these guys say that. I don't know if that was those guys in particular, but it definitely was said in the local magic club. And I just disagree completely. I want the audience to instantly know that I have skills, so I'm worth watching, because they've seen bad magicians at this point on YouTube. They've seen failures on America's Got Talent. And I want to establish myself as somebody worth watching. So that's how I warm them up. It's like, oh, this guy's interesting. And then I'll do some impossible magic that is crystal clear, squeaky clean sleight of hand, usually using the Blackbird. If I don't already have the deck of cards, or as soon as I produce the Blackbird, I will do something like... I'll do my ring flourish. I'll do a flourish like that before I get into producing the coins. So people know that I'm worth watching. So I'll do a little bit of interesting and then build it up, you know, see how fast I can get it going and all that kind of stuff. And so that lets the people know instantly, hey, Jeff's worth watching. And then I do something impossible. So that's my two ways. I say big, impossible production or skillful introduction. For me, that's what works.
That's good. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, I'd say in more close up or intimate situations, I try to do anything that's interactive or where you're making one of the spectators the star. So any effect that the magic seems to happen in their hands or when they do something, even an ambitious card routine, you can gear it towards the spectator as the causation for that card coming up. And a lot of routines can be reworked in that way. But like Jeff was saying, to establish yourself, I like to show a little bit of skill, but I think like anything that is visual, that's like implied skill, I think, in the spectator's mind. When you sort of surprise them or catch them off guard with something quick and visual, they assume like, oh, this guy's for real.
And I think, yeah, no, for sure. And I think that a lot of this kind of question comes down to, once again, what's your goal in magic? What are you what's the experience you want for them to have? Because the way that I would approach it is a little bit along the lines of How to Win Friends and Influence People, the book. If nobody's checked that book out, phenomenal book.
Good stuff.
Because I'm trying to create a connection with the people that I don't know as quickly as possible, and then get into a very quick effect. Because it's like, once you have a connection, you have their attention. Then once you show them you're a good performer, then you can do basically anything. It's like, but if I skip that connection personally, it feels like, you know what I mean? Like I gotta capture their attention with a really fast trick. So in some way, I think the cold opening has got to be some kind of like guys are saying, something that establishes who you are and is quick enough that you can hold their attention for a second.
Yeah. Guys, I agree with all that. I mean, I think Rick, what you said about getting in their hands, what you're saying, connection, Caleb, that. I mean, there's some good, hopefully some good stuff you guys can use there. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, just to kind of go back to the topic of this live stream, some of how you set yourself up is the atmosphere that you're creating before it even starts. This is what we're kind of talking about today. And even in the way you're dressing and the way you approach the people. I think we were going to talk about introducing props, and some thoughts that we may have on that. You want to start explaining a little bit on that, Jeff? How
yeah, sure.
Introduce props?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you make it interesting, you guys have heard me talk about it. Again, I'm remodeling the studio. I have no magic in here right now. But the idea of the traveler wallet, when you open it up, has these folds, and then you reach inside and you pull something out. You might look at yourself, that's interesting. Oh, you check that out. This kind of, the way that you present things makes them interesting and engaging, versus if I just take my coins out of the pocket, I've got 1, 2, 3 coins here. Watch the 3 coins. As 1 travels across, I've got 1 here and 2 here. If you do those very counting meticulous pattern and stuff like that, but if you pull out the coins, like, oh, this is one of those old coins. Have you seen the old coins? Not, please examine this coin, but have you seen this old coin? And then they get to engage and say, it's 100 years old. How old are you? Like there's some engaging questions and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff, that your presentation, when you bring it out, when you perform it, like I said, about maybe where it comes from, the certain pocket in your body, or from a handkerchief, or from a colorful place or something. These sorts of things matter. They're details. And Rick said the key word earlier. He said the word subtle. And I think that subtlety, knowing how to draw just the right amount of attention and not too much, is part of setting that environment. Too much, and what's this tricky object the magician has? Too little, and it's not interesting. Finding that sweet spot and finding how to present it.
Sure. We were talking about that a little bit last week with the coin boxes as well, and how you could either highlight it as like an interesting object, or you could just kind of play it as a normal way to carry your coins, an interesting way to carry them.
I think another interesting approach, I forget where I first heard this, but to bring something like an Aikido box, just for example, because I have it sitting here, bring that out, set it on the table, and then do some other magic. But this interesting object sitting out on the table the whole time, and it's building mystery, and it's people will watch you what you're doing, but then they're gonna focus back to that box you took out until finally towards the end of what you're doing, you finally open this up and do stuff with it. It could just build that intrigue with that object.
Yeah,
I like that.
Even better if you set it up like that, and you could get the question, "What is that?" Oh, that is nothing. You want to see something, and then they've invited the magic in, like we talked about earlier. You've created a connection. That's good stuff.
And I like that because that's a nice alternative, Rick, to a lot of times people that try to come to I feel a lot of performers try to come to the table and like set down their close-up mat. And sometimes it's just not the right environment to set like a whole close-up mat or like a pad or something. You got stuff like popping up. Lights come down. And, yeah. But if you just got like a little coin box, you set that on the corner, that doesn't take up much room at all. And it's basically indestructible. You're not going to set it in water and it gets ruined. You know what I mean?
It's the best. They can. What if somebody picks it up? Who cares?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good idea, Rick. I like that. And hadn't thought of that. It could be an envelope, which will later have some kind of maybe a question mark on it.
Yeah, a question mark.
Just leave it there the whole time.
Yeah,
and then just
walk away. Then
put it back in your pocket and walk away
till they scream for more. Wait.
There was actually a really good side note, but there was a really good effect that I heard of. And Rick, you probably saw it too, because we read some of the same blogs. But he had this idea of having like a little envelope sitting on his Zoom feed for like 6 months. And then it's like nobody would mention it. And as soon as somebody mentioned it, that's when he did the trick. So he was ready to do the trick for like 6 months. And then somebody's like, "What's that envelope that's always behind you?" And then he did the trick.
I could see for the right guy that envelope sitting on the table, and it's a big question mark. Maybe even the word "ask" on there. It's like, what's that? Yeah. Oh, that's the $5 trick. What do you mean? You tip me $5 and I'll show you.
Yeah. We're not recommending stuff like that though.
I can see it for the right guy. I know guys that can pull it off.
Oh my
gosh. For buskers, that would be a good one for a busker though.
Well,
you got to tip them.
Yeah. That does sound like a who's the English busker guy that's a Gazzo. That does sound kind of like a little bit of a Gazzo type of deal. But
we're just creating here. We'll come up with some. It's yours. It's free to use.
Oh yeah. But that kind of leads us into, what do you bring with you? Rick was talking about coin boxes. Is there anything that you guys carry with you purposely? I know you said you talked about via heroes and things, but is there anything else you carry with you purposely to try to create that atmosphere?
Rick, take the lead on this one. Put him on the spot.
Well, back then I would only just have coins and a deck of cards, maybe a gimmick or two with those cards or the coins too, and then I would cycle through like one other odd effect that was tickling my fancy at the time. But that was what I would cycle in and out, was like this third non-coin, non-card, sometimes like a quick mentalism effect. But anything to help the atmosphere, I just always relied on, if I could build a quick rapport, or in a restaurant, I always figured, you'll win some and you'll lose some, and just keep moving on and don't take anything personally. So like, if I wouldn't necessarily be determined to win someone over just so I could perform some magic, because there was a whole restaurant of people. So I was like, okay, enjoy your meal.
But even I was going to say, even the coins that you're bringing, like, I'm sure you weren't just, bringing in a crappy looking penny and a nickel and a couple quarter. Like, you probably had like the coins create the atmosphere too, right?
That's true. I mean, and this was, largely the minority of of circumstances where like I wouldn't show anything. I'm just saying like it would happen. But yeah, the props themselves, they begin that intrigue and creating that atmosphere. So
that's good.
Yeah, that's all good. It depends on the kind of show I'm doing. Again, like right now, like I said, I'm not performing the stage show, but if I was going out for the stage show, what I ended up doing towards the very end, every single show, I brought my own equipment. And so if I was going to perform in a church or a venue that already had a stage, but it wasn't the right environment for stage, I would say, do you guys have a big assembly room that we can set up chairs? Because in general, I'm performing parlor and I'm doing stage sleight of hand and I'm trying to do shows for 100 people, for that sweet spot between 50 and 100 people. I want the crowd large enough in the environment that it can build. I've got several rows of people that the reaction can build throughout the crowd. I've got some depth, I've got some volume, but not so big that I have a 20th row that I need a camera. Because once you add in a camera for the close-up magic, it changes the environment. It's not saying it's bad, but we can watch YouTube all day long. That whole idea for me and my Puritan mindset, I want as many people as possible to see and experience it with my hands like it really happened. And there's no doubt there was no CGI, no editing. And there's a difference in that. And don't get me wrong, Copperfield, Piff, Penn and Teller, all these guys use cameras at different points in their big Vegas stage shows, and the shows rock and they're great. But if you can, on our level, be as organic as possible, there's something about that when you're not watching on the screen. And so what I got to the point was, I would say, let's use the assembly hall instead of the theater setup or wherever the might be, if you've got that. And I came in, I packed in my own curtains, I packed in my own stage lights, my own sound system, so I didn't have to mess with their sound guy, with my own audio tracks and stuff that I could control with my remote. I even had the red carpet, had the stanchion posts that were like the red tape. I still got all that stuff. Even though it hasn't been dusted off in a couple of years, but I could create my entire environment exactly the way I wanted, with my own banners, with my logo and my name big, and I could create this professional feel and environment. So no matter where I went, I was at home. By the time that I was done with the room, we turned off the house lights, we got my stage lights on, I was in the same exact stage in every single environment. So I was at home, I was in control. The only thing that might vary is maybe there's 12 chairs or 14 or 16 chairs in the front row. Depending on how wide the room is, I can go wider or not, but usually a center aisle for the first couple breaks so I could get out into the crowd and I can interact. But the rest of the rows, the back rows would be solid. And so everywhere I went, I was in the same theater. And so I could control my environment. I could control my surrounding, my atmosphere, and it always felt the same for me. I don't wear my glasses or any corrective lenses when I perform, so I knew where I was going. I've got things taped down in the same spots. I've got lights up. Actually, I did up lighting on the wall like in movie theaters, so I could see my surroundings, where I was at, where people were standing, if people are getting behind me for bad angles, or somebody's sneaking around or something. Those kind of things happen. And so I created a complete controlled environment where it was 95% the same every single time. And that's where I ended up, and when I was charging tickets and everything, so I could sell and experience an environment. And I would highly recommend that to anybody. Again, the setup time on that was about 4 hours, and then the teardown, that would be in the rider. The teardown could be another couple hours. So for one gig, lots of times I would try to stack, because I want those 150 to 100 seats. I would often try to stack two shows, like an early show and a late show, and maybe one that's more geared towards kids, one that's not, more geared towards adults. Even though my show is always G-rated, it's always really clean. But there's just certain things and effects you can do for adults that you shouldn't necessarily do for kids. And so I could control that environment. I could keep my numbers right where I'm at. I could control the audience and create the perfect environment. And so I would highly recommend for that. And I charge for it too. I mean, I charge because I was looking at easily a 14 to 16 hour workday. But if I'm driving across town or to where the gig is and setting up and tearing down and, relying on other people to help me unload, and Mike said there's a long day. It was a very long day. And, sometimes it was 3 shows, or sometimes it was a couple days back to back where we could fit in a couple shows, over a long weekend if it was a festival or event. And that's, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. It made the difference, and it really did. And, again, like I said, I charged for it. I said, this is the value you're going to get. And after if somebody can come to the show, and that's always a good thing. If you're in the neighboring town, those other people, invite them to come to the show, give them a free ticket, tell them when it is, host them in some way or shape or form, and let people see it so that word of mouth spreads. Then people say, oh, there is value in that. And so even though I wasn't packing in large stage illusions, I could still charge that I had a bigger show and I had a big presence, and I could create this environment. And so I highly recommend, look into that. Stage lights and curtains. I did backdrop curtains, the same kind of stuff that you can buy from the trade shows. It's heavy, but it's not too expensive. There's magic backdrop companies. I think somebody has that actual website where you can just boom, instantly set up a backdrop.
Those
nice.
Things.
Yeah, they're huge. I really looked into those. They just wouldn't go wide enough. I would have to buy several of them, and I didn't feel like it.
He's got big ones now.
Oh, does he? Okay. See, this was when I invested in this. It was several years ago, and not that long ago actually. But it was.
I can't think of his name.
6-7 years ago. I don't remember. It was actually long. It was a decade ago. Okay, it was a while ago. I've been doing this a while, but showing my age. But I could create different layers, and that allowed me to hide props and my sound equipment. And I always had my laptop right off screen behind curtains, so I could see it from where I'm standing, but the audience couldn't see it. I know what track I'm playing, that kind of stuff.
But I think like you could explain like all this in like an entirely separate live stream. But my question for all the people, there's like 6 people watching right now. You guys are awesome. Oh,
that's great. Glad you guys are here. That's fun.
Yeah. I want to ask those people who are here. We usually see you guys. If you have any ideas for topics that you want to hear about, because like I said, as you can see between Jeff and Rick, let me see. Yeah, Jeff and Rick and myself. We can come up with topics and talk to you guys all day long. We just want to do stuff. We want to talk about stuff that you want to hear. So if you want to hear all about stage setup, or you want to hear about restaurant work, like let us know, send us a message or something. Yeah. We're trying to shoot in the dark and figure out what you guys want to hear about. We'd love to share it with you. Yeah. But on that note, Jeff, that you were talking about, I think it's really interesting thinking about how do you feel comfortable? I think that's what maybe kind of makes it apply to anybody. If you're doing stage shows or restaurant work or just performing for friends and family, what's the thing that you can do to make it feel like you're comfortable every time you perform? Is that, I need to do a little pre-warm-up ritual? I used to go like in the bathroom at the restaurant and like kind of psych myself up just a little bit, get all the nerves out. Yeah. Or is it like I need to like connect with this person and shake their hand and smile and make everybody feel at home? Is it that I need to set up stage lights? What is it you need to do to be the best version of you when you get out there and perform?
Yeah. Oh, so that's a loaded topic. And Rick, feel free to jump in at any time. You just say I've got something. But go ahead.
I mean, really quick.
Took me up on that offer.
For me, it's just getting through that first, again, I'm talking about restaurants, but getting through that first table. Because whether I'm doing magic or public speaking or something like that, I just get nerves. I'm excited, but I have these nerves. And the only way I found to get through that for myself is to just go. And after that first trick that I do, well, number one, be well rehearsed and well prepared, and that will give you confidence. Know what you're doing, know where stuff is in your pockets, before you even begin. And then for me, it was just getting through that first performance, and after that, it was like and I just felt like myself,
That's good.
That's for sure. That's the only thing I can offer.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot more to offer than that. I don't know about that. Sure.
Yeah. I think that's true. Once you get through that first initial, it's like jumping in the cold pool. Once you do it, you go under, you're going to be fine. But until then, you're going to be, if you dip your toe in, you're going to be cold. If you dip your, just get into your waist, just got to plunge in. And I agree with that completely. I'll say real quick, and I know there's some questions popping up over there, so in the comments. But as far as an environment before, and like I said, that if you're at a paid gig or you have the opportunity, anytime, always arrive early. and then turn everything else off. Turn off your phone or put it on silent if you've got to have communication or you need your phone for part of your act. Get rid of the text messages. Put everything else away and clear your mind. Like Caleb, you're saying, go to the bathroom, whatever. But that's why I put in my right. I needed to be there early, and I need some downtime, and I need some time without people. If I get some time without people, I can recharge, and then I can meet and greet before the show. I'm glad to be showing close-up tricks before the main show. I don't mind. That doesn't bother me one bit. I put it in my writer on some shows. If you got me there for this, if it's just a stage show, then you've got me there for this amount of time or the full day or whatever. I'll do whatever I can to help, but I just need that downtime. And then the other thing I was going to say, and I know Matt King does this. I'm pretty sure he still does it still. And I think Penn Jillette may do it. One of my mentors did this, and I don't necessarily do it anymore now. Like I said, I don't perform with my glasses. They were probably one of the things that fell earlier, but I wear glasses right now, and I really want to get LASIK actually at this point. But one of the things you can do if you wear glasses or contact lenses is take them off, because what that does is that limits your visibility and limits the distractions that you can take in, and it clears your environment inside your head. And this environment is important too. We talked about everything the spectators are taking in, that what they need to see, but your environment, what you perceive about yourself as a performer, is just as not much, if not more important. And so one of the simple things I could do when I was starting out is I would take off my glasses. Now what happens? The world gets blurry. That heckler over there, that person that's not paying attention, they're on their cell phone, that kid in the back, I don't see them anymore. I don't care about them as much anymore. I can focus on my own minds and hear my internal dialogue and focus on what's going on inside of me. And I can see and I can hear more. I can listen to my audience more because I'm not worried about as much of their facial expressions. And if somebody's not enjoying it, which most of the time, most of the people are, right? Most of the people are on your side when you're performing. If somebody's not, I tune them out. I don't have to see them. I have to look at their face. I don't worry about it. And so now that I consider myself a little more experienced, I want LASIK. I want to enjoy that all. So for me, it was a progression. I want to take in the spectator's face. I want to know if people are enjoying or not, and I want to see them. But there was a good time in my life when I was starting out, taking off my glasses to perform. And I had a mentor in my life. He was early on. That's what he did, and he showed me that and taught me that lesson. And man, it helped me gain confidence like I can't describe. And so if you're there in that situation where you need to gain some confidence and you have corrective lenses, man, I pop them off and go perform without them, because you can see your hands most likely. Now, if you need them for medical reasons, stuff like that, I'm not a doctor, but that gave me years of confidence. Where are the
cards again?
Yeah. So when I'm close up, I don't need to see them to read or see you guys on a screen here, but I will perform a show with my glasses on now for sure. And hopefully I can get some LASIK in the next year or so.
But you're right. It was a progression for me too. There was one point, and like you, Rick, I performed restaurants a lot, especially pre-pandemic. I was doing 3 restaurants every week, and they were for months and months. And there was a period for about probably 3 or 4 weeks, and obviously I'm in restaurants, and I just did not want to. I got in my head, and I felt like, man, everybody's gonna not like what I'm doing. I had maybe one or two, maybe a few tables that I just kept thinking about the negatives that had happened. I was forgetting about all the people that were enjoying it and just pinpointing all the people that didn't like it, and I was letting it get to me. And it was just it's like you said, Jeff, it took a little while for me to try some new things, try to think about the positive, and now I have my own little methods to make sure that I'm in the right mindset before I go on, so I can give people the best possible show. So you're right. It has to do with, getting out there and trying things and experimenting and taking some of these tips and advice that we're trying to share here and just run with it, So yeah. And a lot of people in the comments here, they weren't necessarily questions, there's maybe one, but a lot of them, I appreciate you guys are putting in topic ideas that we can potentially talk about on another live stream. Topics. Somebody was talking about dealing with, children and when they're trying to grab your props and things. Things that we can definitely cover in the future. Somebody talked about who makes those backdrops. I don't remember the guy's name.
I think it's magicbackdrops.com, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I don't know.
I don't remember the guy's name. Maybe we can put a comment in if we can research it. But they're basically like these accordion. They fold up. I don't know if he got it from him or not, but a magician we all know, John Michael Hinton, I know that he has a big backdrop with his mug on it. It's screened. It's custom printed, but they make them for trade shows. And then there's magic backdrops. Those are like the accordion. They can like go woo, and they fill up with you put a printed screen over them. But magicbackdrops.com is a little different setup, and it actually looks like it has a curtain. Some have like little sparkly LED lights in them, and it has the traditional theater feel to it. And you pretty much go boom, and it sets up in like 10 seconds or something crazy. It's like, and then it just folds back down, and you put it in your case, and they're really lightweight. And that's the case, yeah.
I would say just search the forums, search Magic Cafe, Magicians Forum, see if you can find anybody that knows where those are. But, there's a few different options out there for those kind of things.
They make a big difference, though. If you're a birthday party magician, you're setting up in somebody's living room, boom. I mean, it's just, you got to pack in and pack out. Like, I would highly recommend something of that sort that you can throw up a backdrop so the kids aren't staring out the window behind you, seeing what's going on. The backdrop, they're focused on you as the magician. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and even those kind of things, that's an interesting point too. If you notice, everybody's done this in the screen right now. Rick closed the window behind him, right? Jeff doesn't have a window, and I don't have a window. I have a window like right there, but it's not in your view because we all know we don't want to have like that. Yeah,
something distracting.
You don't want to show that.
There's a change of color.
Right. Yeah. So like even just in the video frame, it's like having those considerations when you go to perform. We talked about that like maybe 2 months ago when it had to do with light sources and knowing where your light sources are so that you can make your magic as clear as possible. These are all just things to keep in mind that we're trying to remind you of when you're going to perform, whether for friends and family or whether for a show. How do I be the best magician I can by taking into account everything that's around me, Yep. So good point. Yeah. Instant atmosphere. Yeah. There's a lot of different thoughts there. So
we need to get somebody military on here who could like tell us that mindset about being aware of the atmosphere for survival. Cause you're going into battle when you're going against these hecklers and these crazy performers on the streets.
Yeah, actually, I do have a buddy who's a magician and was serving in the Army.
Not to make light of that by any means, but just like some of that mindset. Like if I could correlate, there's no correlation to that level, but just that idea of mindset of your environment. That'd be good.
Sure. I think the last little thing we had here was well, you kind of already talked about the things that are important to consider when setting the stage, and you talked about charging for that. If you guys have any further questions on any of this, put them in the comments real quick, and I think we'll start kind of wrapping up here. Is there any additional details you, Jeff, or you, Rick, wanted to mention?
I think we gave people a lot of stuff to chew on here today, and I hope that you picked up on the value of like these little things, these subtle things that you can own them, and when you do it right, when you do it like with excellence, don't worry if people don't notice it, because that means you did it right. Somebody asked me like, what is, I remember getting asked this one time when I was setting up for something, I can't remember, it was a theater, and the tech asked me, he said, how do you know if the stage lighting is good? So I don't know. They said, if nobody notices it. I was like, what? It's the perfect environment if people aren't noticing that the lights are flickering or that the colors are off, because everything is seamless and it creates this perfect environment. And that's when you don't notice it, it's perfect. I was like,
That's a good point. There was one time I was traveling with a buddy, and I was helping, like he was doing stage shows and I was doing his like videography. He had on camera or on stage videography, and I was like so worried about, I was dressing in full black because we all come from a musician background, so we know the music techs on stage always in full black, so you don't notice them so much. And I was like, man, should I wear this or this? And he was like, dude, if people are looking at you, we have a problem anyways. So it's that same mindset. How do you do it so well that people don't even notice, but they feel the difference, Yeah. So I think that's about all we got to say. And some other people had some other, pocket management. That's another topic we can get to in a future live stream.
Chris, I see your comment there. I talked about my pants in the Traveler video. So I'll if you get Traveler in the teaching video, I talk about those, and I still wear stuff like that today.
Perfect. Yep. Perfect. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, I think we might need to wrap it up at this point. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us again.
Share with a friend, like, subscribe.
Yeah. And we'll see you next week, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you then.
See ya.